The quote, "Write what you know," has been credited to Mark Twain. Ralph Waldo Emerson has also been known to say or write that. Write what you know is good advice, and that's what I did. There were two things I knew. One thing was special education. The other thing was Maui, Hawaii. What challenges do you think a special education teacher on the island of Maui might face? Anybody want to take a guess? No. Okay, well, I can tell you what it's like to be a special education teacher. Maui, I'm going to save that story for another time. Special education chose me. I did not choose it. However, most students don't choose to be in special education either. I had an opportunity to get an advanced degree from Western Kentucky University for free, so I took it. As it happened, that degree was not free because I owed the state of Kentucky 3 years in a high-risk, low-income school. The school that chose me was 98% free and reduced lunch, and it was the largest federally funded Title I school in the state of Kentucky. Over the 25 years of my career, many of my students were memorable. I taught in many different schools and 4 different states. I'm going to tell you about 3 of these students tonight. I'm going to change the names and places, though, to protect the innocent. Student number 1 shall be called Susie Q. Susie Q was a polite little first grader. She was very petite. She had bright blue eyes. She reminded me of a porcelain Hummel figurine. She had the voice of a 3-pack-a-day smoker, and she had lice often, which meant she missed school often. A first grade teacher approached me the second week of school and said, "That child stinks to high heaven. Nobody wants to work with her, including me." Stepping into this situation was tricky on all levels. I decided to make a home visit to Susie's mother on her territory. After our little chat, Susie's mom agreed that her hair should be cut short. A former hairdresser turned lunch lady offered to do it for free. So I invited Mom and Meemaw into my classroom to watch. I learned that this family of 7 had no running water. I also bought 5 little outfits for her to wear each day. She would come to school, come to my classroom straight away, change her clothes, go to school, come back in the afternoon, and put her home clothes on. Our routine was set. Every morning, Susie would come into my classroom, brush her teeth, wash her face and hands, comb her hair, change her clothes. One morning, she looked at me and she said, "God almighty, Miss Rudolph, that's a lot of work." And it was, but she did it. Student number 2, you'll know, is Chuck. When I taught in a juvenile detention center, there were some savvy, street smart special education teachers. There was only one of those, and that was me. Students. They ranged in age from 8 to 17, but most of them were 13, 14, and 15 years old, going on 30. Some of them had severe mental issues, And juvie was not a good location for them to receive the care and to have their needs met. Some of them decided juvie was a good placement for them, and they just really wanted to stay there. Chuck wanted and needed a haircut. One morning, he wasn't in class, and I was worried about him. It turns out that he was told getting a haircut was a privilege that he would have to earn by following a convoluted, leveled point system. He could not understand why random points would prevent him from having a haircut, and he was sent to his cell block to cool off. He tried to kill the messenger. It was clear to me that Chuck was never going to be able to understand why he couldn't have a haircut. So, as a level-headed adult, I tried to intervene on his behalf. Could we change the leveled point system to something simpler? Could we change the number of points required? Or could we just give the kid a damn haircut? No. I was told to stay in my lane. My frustration with this situation grew, let's just say soared. And I understood why Chuck was so frustrated with the situation he found himself in. I only lasted 2 years in juvie. The Arizona Department of Corrections was not my gig. And the question begs, is it really anyone's gig? I don't know. Student number 3, meet Chardonnay. She was a Native American, a 10th grader who had not been in public education since 2nd grade. She had just enrolled in our school district because she was placed in a group home near our school. Most of Chardonnay's academic background was spent in institutions of one type or another. One day I found myself sitting at a conference table with 3 special education teachers, a principal, a case manager, a representative from the Bureau of Indian Affairs, one of the people from the group home, and Chardonnay's probation officer. Yes, she had assault charges against her. Oh, and there were 3 special education teachers sitting there too, listening to this child's background. These ladies looked at each other in unison and went, no, no, no. Because of my work in the Department of Corrections and in a Maui school with some of the meanest, biggest 8th graders on the planet, I really wasn't opposed to taking Chardonnay on my roster with some restrictions. She was to attend a half a day for a while until she could become adjusted to high school life. She was not allowed to go into PE classes, art classes, and to stay away from the cafeteria. These are places where, she might be provoked into some aggressive behavior. Chardonnay was as wide as she was tall, and we spent an enormous amount of time with each other that year. She attended some classes on her own as time went by, and she was particularly engaged with English language arts classes, where she was listening to the audiobook of To Kill a Mockingbird. I modified her book report so that she could choose songs that went with the theme of the book, such as racial justice, prejudice, courage. She downloaded iTunes from my iTunes account. This was a while ago. And she burned CDs, and she wrote a lyric, like the line that had something to do with the theme of this story. She was able to do this. On the last day of school, Chardonnay gave me a gift. She had stolen it from the school lost and found drawer. It was a bracelet. That afternoon, I walked her to her ride, and as the church van trundled down the road, she was flashing gang signs out the window, and I waved. And this is it. Thank you, Chardonnay. There are 4 things that successful special education teachers do on a regular basis. Number 1, you build relationships with your students. Number 2, you pick your battles with parents, admin, and gen ed teachers. Number 3, you only deal with the big stuff. Number 4, you focus on students' strengths, not their weaknesses. Special education is not confined to a classroom. It also happens in the wild. In today's world, all people could practice the 4 things because everyone could do with a little less judgment and a little more love. Now you know how I wrote what I knew. What would Ralph Waldo Emerson say about what I did? He might say, write it on your heart. Every day is the best day of the year. And what do you think Mark Twain might say? Perhaps, I would have written a shorter novel, but I just didn't have the time. My novel, In Time Out, took me 12 years to write. So I definitely didn't have more time. Thank you.